Hello students, I want to ask you a very simple question. Why did sociology emerge in Europe only? This is a very important point to understand. Why Europe? Why didn't sociology emerge in ancient Egypt, China or ancient India? So this context is very important to understand. The European context in the process of emergence of sociology. Because society does not produce sociology. Please understand. This is a very important point, critical point to recognize and acknowledge that rapid social change does. So basically sociology is a child of social change. And these social change were sudden, unprecedented. For example, if you look at here on the slide, I have mentioned these points. Ancient civilizations, right? For example, like China, Indian society also, or ancient Egypt also, certainly had social problems. Yes, they were also having social problems, but their basic institutions remained largely unchanged for centuries. For example, social changes were taking place. Some social problems were also there in this in ancient civilization, but family remained largely same, right? Religion remained dominant. Political authority remained traditional. Occupation changing gradually, right? And most people lived where they were born. So we can say that comparatively, ancient civilization and societies were not rapidly changing. But what happened in context of Europe? Europe experienced unprecedented change. This is very important term to understand. Even this is a very important keyword, unprecedented change. A change which was sudden change, and even the change which was not even expected by anyone. So unprecedented change was experienced by European society. What kind of unprecedented change Europe was experiencing? This context is very important to understand not only the emergence of sociology, but also to understand the early sociological thought and classical sociologists. For example, if you look at before 1750s, what was the Europe and how was the European society? So European society was largely driven by agrarian society, right? Then villages were there. Monarchy was well established, kings and monarchy. Feudalism, feudal society. Europe had feudal societies. And you must be knowing about three estate and all those things, right? Then church. Church was very dominant institution, right? So religious dogmas and church were well established. People were believing in different traditions, superstitions, no questioning, nothing. So this is how the Europe was. Then something happened in Europe in last, we can say, in 100 years. See, I am using a word something. Something happened. Now, what is this something? We will see after some time. But because of that something, Europe experienced structural change in the economy, right? And agrarian society largely converted into industrial society. So, industrialization is there. Because of industrial society, cities started to get important place. So, people have started to migrate to cities, right? Instead of monarchy, democracy and democratic values were getting importance, right? Then after feudalism, so feudalism was abolished and capitalism has started to take central role in the economy, right? People were started to ask questions. They have started to think logically, rationally and scientifically, which has created a challenge to religious dogmas and church authority. People have started to question the church itself, right? So that has started. And tradition, obviously the tradition and superstitions and established belief pattern was largely questioned by the idea of modernity. So this happened in Europe. So during just 100 years. So this happened in Europe because of certain things. That was my something. So what is that something? Something is nothing but it happened because of first Renaissance. So Renaissance, a cultural revivalism. where people started to recall their great civilization, great culture, art, literature, and all those things. So it has started with Renaissance, right? Renaissance is not directly related to emergence of sociology, but it has created an intellectual background for the emergence of sociology. Then after Renaissance, then there is an era of we can say Enlightenment, right? Industrial Revolution, French Revolution. Of course, there is a kind of chronology between all these things, but these all changes, of course, scientific revolution, intellectual revolution, all these things were taking place. So because of all these multiple revolutions, the socio-economic structure of Europe was largely changing, was largely replaced by new ideas, new social structure, new social order, by new economic kind of approach and policies, and this is known as unprecedented change. Means Europe was not ready for this type of changes, but changes were taking place. Scientific revolution, right? Industrialization, modernization, urbanization, all these factors have created a kind of better situation for the Europe. At the same time, a panic situation for the Europe. Means a large section of European society was getting the benefits from all these rapid changes. On the other hand, another section of the European society was getting largely disturbed, was largely getting panic because of all these changes. So, and then Durkheim is describing economic situation, right? Even Karl Marx is talking about class and class exploitation. These classes were emerged now because of all this revolution. So these all these things, all these components created a favorable situation for the emergence of sociology. So one need to understand that sociology is very precisely, I am telling you now, sociology is a child of social change. Only societies are existing, that will not make any sense. Sociological emergence, the emergence of sociological thought is, or let's say, are closely connected with the sudden unprecedented social change. And then society was changing, and this changing society was largely attracting to different perspectives, different thought processes, and ultimately different sociologists. So some were interested to understand how the factory systems and capitalism have created a pathetic situation for the proletariat, working class people. And then Marx is talking about classes, class-based society and class struggle, right? Then collectivity, right? This collectivity was attracted Durkheim, and then Durkheim is talking about collective conscience, solidarity, and all those things, right? Then new social institutions like bank, like finance supporting systems, services were also taking place. For example, bureaucracy was also taking place because of new social order. So these bureaucratic institutions attracted a scholar like Max Weber. And then he's talking about bureaucracy and all those things. So this is how emergence of sociology was closely connected in context of social change. So whenever you will talk about social change, you need to understand the context of Europe and in which context the emergence of sociology has been asked. So according to the question, you have to connect the points and you have to support it by different sociologists and different founding fathers' perspective. Thank you.
जरी एक अश्रू पुसायास आला, तरी जन्म काहीच कामास आला.